How's it, everyone? Welcome back to another string review right here on OpenCourt. I'm Kent, and today I'm testing out a Ytex string. It has been a while since I reviewed a Ytex string. Their Quadro Twist is one of my favorite polyester strings currently. So I just kind of went on their site and looked at their string catalog and just picked the one that seemed the most interesting to me. And the one that I settled on is the Ytex PentaPower Twisted. Let's check it out. Alright, so the PentaPower Twisted, as the name suggests, is a 5-sided and twisted string. So my favorite Ytex string is the Quadro Twist, which is 4-sided and twisted. So does the extra side add more spin potential? Well, that remains to be seen. We'll find out when we jump on the court with this string, but it is kind of the twisted profile that I like. Although twisted strings are a pain in the butt to string, I do notice that twisted strings do get a little bit more spin potential. One set of this string costs $13.50. If you guys go into the description down below, you can use my link to purchase this string or the Quadro Twist or any of Ytex strings. You can get an awesome discount if you use that code, and that also greatly supports the channel. So check that out if you're interested. So this is $13.50 for a set, and it comes in black. And unfortunately, it only comes in one gauge, which is a 128mm or 16L. I do wish some of Ytex strings came in more gauges. Most of their strings only come in one gauge option, like my favorite Quadro Twist. I kind of wish they had it in a thinner gauge, although if they did, it'll probably be a little bit too soft, a little bit too high of a launch angle, and might lose tension faster. But I do wish there were a little bit more gauge options so that people out there with different play styles or looking for something different could kind of tinker around with the gauge to get what they want. And Ytex has implemented their own kind of thermal foil cooling process, as they call it. It's kind of similar to the Technifiber thermal core. It kind of heats the core of the string, which actually gives it a little bit more elasticity. It's going to be a little bit more soft, so it's going to stretch a little bit, which gives you a little bit more power because it's more elastic. But at the same time, the outer shell is going to be a little bit stiffer, so it's going to lead to more durability and better tension maintenance. I don't really care much about tension maintenance or durability because I cut strings out anyway, but I do want a string that's on the stiffer side to give me a little more control. I don't like a really soft and springy, mushy string. So these thermal core strings do kind of play into what I want, although some of them tend to be a little bit too springy for me. The Ytex Quadro Twist, once it does start to drop tension, then it does become pretty high launchy, kind of a hard to control string if I take a really full cut. We'll see if the PentaPower will hold the tension and the control and the lower launch angle that I like a little bit better. So I got the PentaPower Twisted in my trusty Head Extreme Tour Night. This is one of, if not currently my favorite racket. It's either this or the Speed Pro, but this racket is known for its spin potential with its funnel-shaped spin grommets. So combined with the PentaPower Twisted, I'm expecting to be able to hit some biting kick serves, incredible slices, and be able to use my short angle game where I really want to come over the ball, impart topspin to get it to dip inside the sidelines. We'll see how that goes. I strung it at 54 pounds both ways because this racket does come with a little bit of built-in power, so I want a little more control, and I trust that the spin will keep it in. But without further ado, let's get on the court and let's test out the Ytex PentaPower Twisted. But before that, if you guys like this content and want to see more, be sure to overhead smash the like and subscribe button to keep the reviews coming. So let's start out with the pros of the Ytex PentaPower Twisted. Did this string play similarly to my favorite Ytex string, the Quadro Twist? Well, we'll get into that a little bit later. My initial thoughts of this string was that it was pretty stiff when it was fresh, which is also the case with the Quadro Twist, but the PentaPower was much stiffer and also didn't really have as much feel. Thankfully, it loosened up and played much more in the style that I enjoy. So let's first start with the spin potential comparison, since that is what I was most curious about when compared to the Quadro Twist. To be honest, I actually felt the Quadro Twist got more spin potential because the PentaPower Twisted is surprisingly stiff. It didn't get as much string displacement as I thought it would. Less string movement means less snapback. It still gets above average spin potential because of the shaped and twisted profile, but I noticed my kick serve was much more effective with the Quadro Twist. But make no mistake, this string is still a spin monster. If I accelerated through the point of contact and successfully got a full pronation on the kick serve motion, I was able to curve the ball down into the corner and it was kicking noticeably to the right. I got some decent sliding action on my slice serve as well, and I was able to get a lot of freebies on my serve. But in my opinion, the best aspect of the PentaPower Twisted is the control on full swings. Don't let the name fool you. I did not think the PentaPower was a power poly by any means. I forgot to mention in my description of the string that there is a non-twisted version of this string simply called PentaPower. That original version could possibly be softer because it isn't twisted and tightened further, but I noticed the twisted was quite stiff and dead, and that meant a lot of my full swings landed inside the court without much issue. I usually don't like stiff dead polys, and I'll definitely mention that later, but for those who can bring their own power to the table, the PentaPower Twisted will keep most of their huge swings inside the baseline. This string incentivizes players to take big swings, which was a surprise to me because the Quadro Twist and other strings I've tried in the Ytex catalog like Octo Twist and Pro Tour Blue are all fairly lively and provide assistance with power. Ytex touts its arm-friendly polys, but the PentaPower Twisted was probably the stiffest string I've tried from them. This isn't a bad thing because I like stiff strings because they give a more direct response to my arm. This stiff controlled response helped most on my returns. If I got a clean contact, I could trust that the strings would keep my aggressive returns inside the lines. I like to step inside the court, so usually my margin of error on returns is much lower than when I'm rallying from the baseline, so I appreciated the dead feel for that. The PentaPower Twisted also lived up to the description on the Ytex website. This string is much better than Quadro Twist at maintaining tension. Initially, the string bed is very stiff, almost board-like, similar to 𝐥𝐨𝐬 Confidential. But once it settled into the racket, it became much more playable, and I didn't notice any huge drop-off a few more sets. I never break strings, so I can't comment on durability, but this string is quite slick and the edges aren't too sharp, so I believe this string is good for frequent string breakers who have a healthy arm. But unfortunately, the control and spin potential are about the only two positive things I found during this playtest. I was a bit disappointed with the PentaPower Twisted because its feel is too dead. This isn't a bad string by any means, it just doesn't fall under the type of string I like. This string is very similar to Babolat RPM Blast, which gets good control due to its spin and dead feel. This is a string I've said many times in the past that I don't like, but if you're the type of player that likes dead control strings, this is right up your alley. So now let's talk about the cons of the PentaPower Twisted. I have quite a bit, but like I said earlier, it is simply because this string is not the type of string I mesh well with. The biggest issue I have is the dead feel. I don't like dead strings, as avid viewers of this channel know, because I am mostly a touch player. Yes, I am also an aggressive swinger from the baseline, but I don't have a lot of natural power because I have a shorter reach, so I actually want something that has a little more liveliness to it so it assists with power. But for the most part, I rely on a deceptive, crafty style that mixes in drop shots, short angles, net approaches, and slices. I mix those touch shots in with flatter ground strokes to keep my opponent guessing. The strings that work the best for me are crisp strings that give me the confidence to aim for all of those power, placement, and finesse shots like Link's Tour. Even Quadro Twist gave me a decent amount of touch because it pockets the ball better. The PentaPower Twisted is too dead for me to utilize my finesse game. I often found myself hitting drop shots into the net or volleys that just didn't go exactly where I wanted. Another thing about this string is that it felt like it had a very small sweet spot. Anything hit outside the exact center felt very dead and had no power. I struggled to hit defensive shots because I don't always get solid contact when I have to stretch for a ball. My defensive returns suffered the most because I have to return my opponent's fastest shot. The stiff feel would sap the energy return off my return swing, and this caused me to hit many returns into the net when I didn't get a full swing. My overheads, which are actually my worst shot because of my timing, also suffered because when I had to backpedal and swing at the same time, I didn't get solid contact very often. I noticed many of my misses from all areas were in the net, and I rarely hit the ball past the baseline. This is why I think this string is meant for someone who swings big and has more natural power. And lastly, this string requires an extensive break-in period. Fresh off the stringer, this string is as boardy as they come, similar to 𝐦𝐨𝐬 Confidential. It does loosen up, but it took a while for me to get any response on touch shots or even feel when I struck the sweet spot on a fast swing. I'm used to playing with strings that require a break-in period, but not only does the PentaPower Twisted take longer than usual, it doesn't loosen up enough for my game. I need something a little more lively to provide some extra punch on serves, backhands, and off-center contact. Overall, I'll be sticking to Quadro Twist as that string has much more feel and liveliness for my game. The PentaPower Twisted is a low-powered, control-oriented string in the vein of RPM Blast and Vocal Cyclone. If I were to use this string again, I would string it 3 pounds lower at 51 pounds to get a bit more free power. So, who is the Ytex PentaPower Twisted for? It's for players who have incredibly fast strokes and can provide their own power. Players who like stiff and dead control polys like RPM will like this string. In my opinion, this string has higher spin potential than RPM, but they are basically similar. Unfortunately, this string is not for me. It lacks the crisp feel and lively bounce off the string bed for more touch shots as well as power. Quadro Twist remains my favorite string in the Ytex lineup, but the PentaPower Twisted certainly fits the power hitter profile. So now let me hear from you guys in the comments. Have you tried the PentaPower Twisted? How do you like it compared to other Ytex strings? Does PentaPower Original play a little more lively? Let me know down below and I'll see you on the next review. Thank you for watching this review of the Ytex PentaPower Twisted right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on an OpenCourt.